And I remember when I first met you online, I thought, wow, she's cool. I want to get to know this gal. And at the time, I knew there was Brenda Davis and Vasanto Molina and, a few others. But then you came onto the scene and you brought a real new, fresh perspective to things as well. And yeah, so you've been, in the scene for a long time, and you've got a lot of, credits to your name. Julieanna has authored 3 books. It's 3, correct?
5.
5. Okay, see, we've lost track. Okay,
I
so
know.
I'm going to add the first ones: Complete Idiot's Guide to Plant-Based Nutrition, Vegetarian Diet, Health Span. What have I missed?
Complete Idiot's Guide to Gluten-Free Vegan Cooking.
Okay.
And then we did a version 2 of Plant-Based Nutrition Idiot's Guide.
Okay.
And then I just got my book offer for the next one. So I'm going to be working on the next one.
Can you reveal anything or not yet? Okay.
Not yet.
Next interview, maybe down the road.
Yes.
So yeah, and Julieanna's done TV shows, and she's worked with experts in the field. So this is our opportunity to ask her some nutrition questions and get her expertise on things that we're always asking. Like, so Jules, I mentioned that I have a Facebook group with a lot of families, plant-based families, and I get the same questions often. Like, so we'll start with the first. One question that we get often is, excuse me, what supplements do I need to take? What are the key supplements? And I give them my answer, which is, I feel B12, DHA, and vitamin D, especially for us up in Canada and in colder climates. But what are the key supplements for people on a plant-based diet?
So I kind of lump these into what I call the notable nutrients. So there's 5 notable nutrients that are micronutrients, and then the EPA and DHA, which is a fatty acid, so it's a macronutrient. So let's go through all of them, I think. Is that okay? Because they're really important.
You do. Yeah.
Okay, so vitamin B12 is urgent. I'm very concerned because anyone that's plant-based and anyone that's over the age of 50 requires a supplement. So what happens is we start kind of not producing enough intrinsic factor in our stomach, and we don't absorb. I always say it's the most finicky vitamin with an attitude problem, because it has this like requirement for the specific, like it has to be specifically perfect to be absorbed. The right dosing, it's like this logarithmic absorption rate. I brought my tea too, by the way, so cheers.
Cheers. It's like the toddler of vitamins, or maybe the teenager of vitamins.
Yes. Speaking as mothers of teenagers, indeed, it is totally. So it is. It's kind of this difficult nutrient. It's water soluble, so you can't really overdose on it. The problem is everyone thinks, oh, I don't need anything, I'm perfect. But there's other problems. Like, if you won't see a deficiency in your lab work until it's too late, usually. And I've literally seen people show up with potentially irreversible neurological damage because they ignored this issue. So it's an issue.
That's really scary. And I think that, people also, and I'm going to throw this at you, and obviously you need to finish the answer, but I think people also are afraid to be judged that they're taking supplements on a vegan diet, which is ridiculous, right? But I think there's this idea that, oh, our diet's so perfect, we don't need anything.
And I think to our detriment, because every diet, no matter if it includes animals or doesn't, needs to be heeded attention to. We need to choose our diet conscientiously, and no matter what you eat or don't eat, it is really important. People in the standard Western diet are low in vitamin C and fiber, all these other real folate, all these really important nutrients too. So we all need to be mindful, and I think that it's not exclusive to a vegan diet. And literally the safest, easiest, most reliable, most effective way to avoid neurological problems is just to take the B12. And by the way, in the old days, if we drank from streams and we ate our produce without washing it, and we had soil that wasn't a little bit depleted or whatever's going on, we would have had our B12 from plants. But I don't like to get that gritty sand in my greens, so I washed them and I washed away, hence all the B12. So it's not a big deal. It's very cheap and easy to find. But there's 3 special dosing regimens that I recommend. By the way, all of this is on my website. All of this is in my books. Like, you can find this everywhere because you don't have to remember it. It just, there's a lot of information that's really, these are the most important things. So the 3 ways to dose B12, it depends on how many vitamins you like to take or how many pills you like to take. You could do it, the most amount would be like 2 servings of 50 micrograms a day, or 1 serving of 150 micrograms a day, or just once a week, 2,500 micrograms of B12. And again, that's all on my website, plantbaseddietitian.com, so you can come check it out and just have those numbers in front of you. So that's the most important one.
And that's easy. That's like once, and they're small pills, they're inexpensive, right? Now, can you clarify with whether it's methyls, you'll finish it, cyabolamine, or the other one?
Yeah, so there's several forms. The most popular are cyanocobalamin and then methylcobalamin, and I recommend cyanocobalamin. However, unless you have that MTHFR, I can remember the gene, then you probably need to do the methylcobalamin. So that's, I found out it was kind of more in the population than I thought. I think it's upwards of like 10% of the population need to be mindful of that, but most people will know if they have that. And okay, the other nutrient is vitamin D, and not just for you in Canada. Yeah, it's the worldwide issue suddenly. I mean, I live in LA, like the sun 360. In fact, we had this rainy day today and that lasted 5 minutes, and here's the sun back out. We've got the perfect latitude, and still I have people all around me with very low D. So it has to do with sun exposure. It has to do with excess fat on the body. And the darker your skin is, the darker your skin is, the more sun time you need. So there's, and most people are sun phobic, so we slather on sunscreen. Yeah.
We don't allow ourselves to get like 10, 15 minutes of sunshine on our skin when we need it. You know, we need some sunshine. It's not being out there at the peak hours and burning ourselves.
Right. Yeah, just a few minutes. But it doesn't always work. Some people are more, you know, difficult to actually absorb because of extra fat or extra darker color pigment on your skin. Yeah. Just so many variables. It's very interesting. But unlike B12, D is a fat-soluble nutrient. So I don't recommend blindly supplementing, usually, unless it's like a 2,000 IU a day dose. But with my clients, I have them get tested and know their serum levels of D, and then I dose them accordingly. Because, you know, if you're really low, you want to bring your levels up. It is really important. And if you're, you know, it just depends. So that's a fat-soluble nutrient. That's a little different. Most people need to be concerned about D around the world.
I'm glad you brought that up, and maybe you can explain what that means in terms of taking that supplement, because I actually had my blood tested last year. I was so low on D. And
how low?
Critically low. She said, "I'm surprised you're not sick." I'm like, "I feel great." The next week I got sick. But I was taking it in the dry pill form. And she said to me, like, say, like the tablet, like a chalky tablet. And she said it's fat soluble. You're better to take it in a drop or something else that is, so perhaps, and so she boosted me up to take much more. So maybe you can explain how that should be taken. Is the chalky one okay for some people? Like maybe for me, it's not, my body didn't absorb it very well. Can you take it either way?
That's a very good question. I've never heard that before, because I don't think it's the form of the supplement. It's taking it together with fat. So I would make sure I take it. I take mine with my meals, and I always have, like, you know, I make sure I have 1 to 2 ounces of nuts and seeds a day. So I always take it when I'm having my nuts and seeds, because that's the primary source where I get my fats from.
Okay, so that's what I was missing. See, I would take it in the morning, and I'd probably take it like with tea or with my green smoothie, which didn't have
the problem.
That was the problem. And this is like critical information that we don't know. Like and I've been pretty on top of nutrition for a while, like not obviously to your extent, but enough to know what things I need, but I missed that completely. So
yeah, you know, I just finally aligned with this company called Complement Plus. And if you go to my profile, you could see a link to it, because it's got all of the nutrients. I haven't finished talking about all of them, because there's a few, all of them in 3 pills a day. So I love that. It's good. And I take them all with my meal.
Or spray, right? Which is so easy for kids.
I don't think they have the spray yet. I think they had it. I think they're reformulating it, but that's right. It's good for the kids, because you could have a different dose for the kids, and most kids can't swallow the pills, right? Yep. So yeah, I'm not sure about the tablet thing. I've not heard that. I just think it's what you're accompanying the supplements with. So
my bad then.
Well, no.
So we don't know, right? We don't always know this. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's not so clear even on the label. I mean, supplements are not regulated, so it's kind of like you just buyer beware. You have to go out there and you have to find out this information on yourself unfortunately. I mean, that's what I do is like as a dietitian, like I work with clients to help them navigate all this because it can be tricky.
Yeah.
It can be tricky. Okay, so the third vitamin, there's 3 vitamins, B12, D, and K2.
Okay. I've heard a lot about that, so go into it because I know K is in green leafies, like it's really rich in parsley, and I always have parsley every day, like in my smoothie and such. But it's not K2, right?
That's right. So when I first started this 16 years ago, I was like, oh, we got our K covered. We were doing leafy greens galore. I always call myself a leafy green guru because I'm always like recommending leafy greens because you get your vitamin K and you get a lot in there, but you also get your vitamin K. However, it has unfolded that is K1, and it seems like we need to also supplement with K2, menaquinone. So that's phylloquinone. This is menaquinone. Basically, we get it. You can get it from natto on a plant-based diet, which is that Japanese fermented. Have you had that?
No, but I'm thinking most of us won't have that, right? So
Correct. And like most of us don't want to have it because it's like this
right.
gooey, like, oh, I don't know, I don't like it. Some people like it.
Bring on the natto. Come on, everyone.
I know.
I don't think we're doing it.
Yeah, not something very common in our culture, but it's possible. Otherwise, I just recommend the K2 supplement because there's this whole thing going on with what Ks do for, or K2 especially do for your bones and your heart. And there's a whole prioritization thing that takes place. And so having K2 can help support cardiovascular and your bone health.
And what's the best way to take K2?
I take it with, it is a fat soluble nutrient. So that's what I love about Complement Plus.
Okay.
Yeah.
And otherwise it would probably be in just a straight up pill that you would take, like a little capsule.
Yeah.
Okay. And I was going to ask something about that. Now, because we're on the plant-based diet, where would K be in the other world, the animal world? Or is it a problem there too?
Animal products.
It is. Okay.
Not really a problem.
Okay. So it's synthesized somehow for the plant-based diet to be able to take K2?
Yes. Yeah, that's a good question, exactly how they do it. But there are definitely vegan versions of it. And that's what I like also about Complement Plus. It's all vegan, so you don't have to even think about it.
Don't even have to guess. You don't have to go to the store and go, which one of these is vegan? We have 50 different brands, right?
Right. I don't think there's that many K2s out there right yet.
No.
It's not a big thing yet.
Okay, that's really good to know. And especially I think, when you're getting older and for your bones and such, we feel entirely resilient for many years, right? I think like we're in our teens, 20s, even our 30s, and we're like, yeah, nothing.
I got this. I'm vegan, so I'm good.
Yeah. And then we start to realize that, we do have to take care of a lot of different aspects, and no thing that we're doing in our world is completely perfect. Our diet, and we have stresses, and we have, stress is such a big component in how we absorb food and how we deal with, right? Like our digestion can literally shut down from stress. So we have to be aware of, yes, sometimes we need that help, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, what about DHA? You don't think it's something? Do you feel?
So yes, let's get to that. But first, with the micronutrients, there's 2 minerals. So there's 3 vitamins. There's 2 minerals that we need to be mindful of, and they're interesting. One is iodine, and the other one is zinc. So iodine is interesting because we used to have problems with goiters and hypothyroid and all the stuff that we would have from iodine deficiency, and so they iodized our salt.
Right.
So now, because everyone was eating salt, so now we have iodized salt. But what has happened since is that people are not having salt. So what's happening is they are avoiding salt because of high blood pressure, or they're using fancy schmancy salts that, like Himalayan salt and the black lava salt.
Yes.
And that's not iodized. So I'm seeing for the first time in my career, people coming to me with goiters.
What?
I know. So you need to be mindful of iodine. So you could either choose iodized salt. You can be very careful about sea vegetables because you don't want to do too much. Sea vegetables I don't love as a source. I love them to eat. They're delicious, but I don't love them as a source because it's not really reliable on how much iodine is each one. You could have a high iodine, you have a low iodine. It's just not so regulated, which is why I supplement with it too. Or you could do iodized salt. It's only, I have to look it up again. I think it's half a teaspoon a day or a quarter teaspoon a day to get your 150 micrograms of iodine a day, which is all we need. Just make sure it's iodized or supplement if you don't want to do salt.
Okay. And I do not like sea vegetables, so that's not. I will be. Yeah, I know you love sushi, and my kids love sushi. It makes me gag. The smell of it, everything. I run from the house. So it's I can't. So I would And I do remember learning something about that with the iodized salt. And I think you could even maybe, just be conscious of having a little bit at your table and just maybe sprinkling it occasionally, right?
Right. It doesn't need to be anything major. Or you could pop a supplement. I mean, again, it's like it's up to you.
It's up to you if you
Yeah.
want to cut salt. And then a supplement, how do you take iodine in a supplement? Is it a pill or is it a liquid?
Again, you could do both. I have it in the same old Complement Plus. That's what I love about it. Everything is in a pill.
Okay.
Everything I've been talking about for, a decade and a half is like all put together in one pill.
I think are they reformulating the spray to have all that in it? Because the spray used to be just DHA, DB. They're reformulating the spray to have all of that then?
Yes, it'll be the same thing, but you could pediatric dose it for kids.
Super. That will be awesome.
Yes, I'm excited.
Okay.
And then the other mineral is zinc, and that we can get from nuts and seeds and beans and legumes and leafy greens. We can get some zinc. However, and because of the phytates, which nobody should be afraid of, despite all the popular media, they're fabulous, but it does inhibit the absorption of zinc. So it kind of blocks it. So we can tend to have a risk for deficiency in zinc.
Okay. And so if you're eating, and I know some are higher in zinc than others, like pumpkin seeds are higher in zinc than some things, right? So if you're eating, say, I don't know, a few tablespoons of pumpkin seeds a day or every other day, are you probably okay, would you think?
Well, interestingly, I've run my diet, just for fun, or my clients' diets through like a chronometer, like a nutrient database.
Yeah.
And it's surprisingly hard to get enough zinc.
Okay.
So that's why I consider a notable nutrient. And I use my 6 daily 3s mnemonic to like kind of prioritize food. So getting leafy greens, getting every day, and your legumes every day, and getting 1 to 2 ounces of nuts and seeds every day will help you. It's just not perfect. So
which nothing
consider. What?
Nothing is in life, right? Nothing. Right. Diet, everything we do, nothing is perfect, and we need to get out of that perfect mentality with diet and everything else, right?
100%. Yeah, I mean, it's like progress, not perfection.
Yeah.
Radical self-compassion. We do our best, and we, but that's why I like that you could just take a supplement, not worry about it. Like all my clients, especially I do a lot of weight loss. In fact, one of the most predominant things I've been doing lately is weight loss with my clients. So I have a weight loss support group. I have a weight loss ebook I'm launching on Monday.
Yay!
But when you're on a deficit, because you have to be in a deficit to lose weight, I have my clients take this multi, because then they don't have to even think about it. So because we're not like we're not chasing nutrition like most people are, especially during weight loss, because you have to create a deficit. It's just kind of like cover your bases and not worry. Or as my clients that are parents, just to give your kid a multi, because you're not going to get them to eat exactly what you want. You're the queen of that.
No, I mean, one of the hardest things with kids is omegas, I think, the omega-3s, because they're in foods that they don't typically love, unless you can get the chia, the flax, the, walnuts. To me, that's been harder than some of the other foods and some of the other nutrients, and hemp seeds as well. I mean, hemp seeds might be a little easier, chia puddings, but they're not usually eating that every single day.
Right. And let's talk about that, because that's the last notable nutrient. Okay. And that's what's so interesting. So we get on a plant-based diet, we get our omega-3. So there's 2 essential fats, omega-3s, omega-6. Omega-6 is ubiquitous. We get it everywhere. We never have to worry. What we do want is to have a better ratio of omega-3 to omega-6. And so we want to have it about 1 to 4, and we have it's like 1 to 20, the way we're eating with a lot of oils and processed foods. That's where we get a lot of the omega-6. So the omega-3 form we get from plant-based diet, from ALA, in the forms you just said, in chia, hemp, and flax seeds, in walnuts, in soy foods. But what happens is our body has to elongate that molecule into EPA, eicosapentaenoic acid, and then elongate again into docosahexaenoic acid. So that's EPA and DHA, which is what people have heard of. The question is, what's interesting is if you test a vegan's blood, we have lower levels of those long chain EPA and DHA versus compared to a meat eater or a fish eater. Does that matter is the major question. We don't know if that matters, because we have a lower risk for cardiovascular disease and likely Alzheimer's, which are the two of the things that are associated with that nutrient group. So it doesn't matter. We don't know for sure yet, to be determined, but a lot of experts are recommending, and I recommend with my clients, that we supplement with the EPA and DHA from a microalgae form, just to be sure.
Yeah. And we don't know how well each very specific person makes that conversion, right? If they are doing that very efficiently.
Right, and especially during times like pregnancy or breastfeeding when it's crucial, you need this for your baby.
Yes.
So it's like you might as well. Like that's what they even fortify, you know, breast like what's it called? Oh my God.
Formula.
Formulas. Thank you.
Yeah.
They even fortify that with DHA and EPA anyway. So, you know,
Yeah.
if you're not getting enough, it's just something to consider.
Yeah. Okay. So that we covered our basics. We cover them all there?
Yeah, that's all of them.
Iodine, zinc, DHA, B12, D,
K2.
K2. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so my next question is, what's up with Nooch? Why has Nooch gotten a hard, been given a bad rap lately about MSG? Have you heard about that with MSG and Nooch? No?
No, but I have a whole thing to say about MSG that your audience might be like, what?
Okay, good, because I had, I saw a few articles and someone emailed me about it and said, and we love Nooch. I love Nooch. I didn't like it for the first 10 years of being vegan. I thought it was, and now I love it. But yeah, I heard there was something about there's MSG in it. And then when I did some searching around, I got to what I could gather from the information was that the MSG in Nooch is like a natural formation of it, whereas what's added to food is more like synthetic, so it has a different, it's not the same effect on the body. But there were a few articles out there saying Nooch is not what you think it is, like that kind of thing.
I'm more concerned about the folic acid in Nooch.
Oh,
so there are some formulas that are not fortified with folic acid, because having folic acid synthetically, which is what you're just saying, I don't think that's about, I'll talk about MSG because that's a whole different thing. Okay. But folic acid is a form that is when it's supplemental, when it's fortified. And so what we're getting on a plant-based diet is folate from the food sources. So all the leafy greens, we get plenty of folate. We don't have to worry about folate. Folic acid has been associated with like breast cancer, I think prostate cancer, and certain other things. So we don't want to take a synthetic version. Honestly, I usually just get that. I use a regular Nooch with folic acid just because I like it and it's cheaper than the other one, and the other ones don't taste as good, but I don't think it's good. So I would recommend trying to find, there are a few that are folic acid free. And yeah, so, I think that's my big concern.
So being not fortified, is that what you look for? Nutrition
yes.
That isn't fortified, which we've always been told to take or eat nutritional yeast with that's fortified just because it's got the extra stuff in it, but we don't need to.
Well, I mean, it's fine if it has the B12 and all that, even though I don't consider it a reliable source of B12. No. Yeah. I don't recommend anything as like, I definitely, please don't take spirulina for B12 because it blocks the B12 receptors and then you don't even absorb the real B12. So, you know, you have to be real. That's why B12 is like a no question for me. It's like, you have to supplement B12. Okay. If anything, that's the most important one. So, but with Nooch, you know, you can find these ones that don't have folic acid, but they're more expensive. They're harder to find, but you can get them on like Amazon, and so you can order them.
Okay, and so it's just really if it's a real concern, then you maybe pay a little bit more to get it, right? And if you buy it in bulk, then you can save on it as well. Like those are things, if this is an ingredient that you love to use and that's a concern for you, then search it out in bulk and see if you can buy it.
I have not found an unfortified one in bulk, but I would love for them to let us know if they do.
Yeah, that's really worthwhile to know. And it's, you know, it's one of these things that we're constantly learning and evolving, and, you know, information will always continue to come up about food and everything, right? We're always learning more. So this is not something that we knew maybe, 5 years ago, perhaps? Was this fairly new information about the folic acid then?
No, it's not really new information, but it's just not real popularized, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, good to know. All right. So then, and then what's the MSG you wanted to mention?
So, okay. So I was the advocate. I wrote in my very first book, I wrote, yeah, MSG. I didn't recommend it, but I was digging into literature. So I love everything I say has to be based on science. Like I'm open book to learning. I always want to learn more. I will never say, oh, I know it all, I'm done. Because it keeps evolving. The nutrition science is fascinating. It keeps evolving. We learn something new all the time. And it's my favorite thing is to stay on top of that. So that said, when I was digging into the MSG data, when I was at the beginning, this is 11 years ago, I realized there wasn't anything really substantial anti-MSG. So I was like, okay. So I didn't really take a big stance on it. I just said avoid it because everyone was avoiding it. And I regret that.
Right.
Well, fast forward to 2 years ago, I was invited to a conference on B12. I'm sorry, in B12, I just saw B12 on MSG. And I went from Ajinomoto, which is a company that makes MSG. So I was like, okay, I'll check it out. So I went to this, because I got to go to New York and go to this conference and learn stuff from all these scientists. And I learned so much. Like basically monosodium glutamate is something we have very highly in our body. We actually make it. It's actually the #1 highest amino acid in breast milk. It is totally part of our body. It's a sodium and a glutamate. So there's nothing harmful about MSG. So it's political. So what happened was in the 50s or 60s when we started getting different types of, oh my gosh, it's like I can't ever get a no disturb on when I'm doing a live, no matter what I try.
I know.
So
even the phones aren't perfect, right? Nothing is. So
nothing's perfect. So we just make it do. So anyway, it was just so interesting that to see that what happened was in the 50s or 60s, I think when we were integrating and all, like we were becoming more, different cultures were moving into the US and the Chinese culture was starting to integrate and have restaurants and all that stuff was happening. And one New York Times reporter or something like that went to the store, the restaurant, had this Chinese meal and then wrote a whole scathing article about MSG causing him to be high blood pressure and high this and high that. And it stuck. Like it became this story that everyone believed you have MSG, you have all these symptoms. So being the science girl that I am, after I heard that, I was like, wait, what? And at this conference, they showed I dug into the research with them. And it was basically like, there's randomized placebo-controlled studies showing that there are no increased symptoms of MSG versus no MSG, like placebo-controlled. And so it was all based on this one story that came out. And if you look at the science on the safety and efficacy, it's totally safe. So I'm not afraid of it anymore. It's naturally occurring in our bodies. It's naturally made in our bodies. It's naturally occurring in foods.
Okay. Well, that's really good to know because, you do look at labels and whenever I ever see MSG, I'm like, like alert, right? Bad. It tends to be in crappy products though. I will say that. Like if you look at products, MSG tends to be in products that have a lot of additives and that.
I'm going to counter that point with processed foods. Forget it. Yeah. It makes things taste better because, so here's a counterpoint that you may not have thought of. I had not thought about this. There are 2 reasons I actually think it might be beneficial to include MSG. I don't use it because I don't need to make my food taste better. We did this taste test where they gave us vegetable broth and they gave us vegetable broth with MSG and they give us vegetable broth after that with MSG and another inoculate. And so it was like this synergistic effect and like the flavors of that plain broth became like alive and absolutely like magnificent. So it basically expands flavor. Like it makes everything taste better, like salt does, but on steroids. So here's 2 reasons why MSG might be okay for you. Yeah. First of all, it's lower sodium than salt.
Oh. No,
so you get the flavor without extra sodium.
Okay.
And secondly, it makes vegetables taste better. For those people that are hesitant on the vegetables, you can make it taste really good if you don't like it. I already like my vegetables like you, so we won't need this. But someone that doesn't like vegetables, it might make them taste better.
It's a umami thing, isn't it?
It's an umami thing.
That's precisely so fascinating. And so maybe that's why people who love Nut really love it because
that's right.
Umami thing. And now I can say to hell with that MSG that's out there because clearly it's not backed up by science, right?
It is not harmful. It tastes good, and there's no reason to avoid it.
Awesome.
But also you find it naturally, like mushrooms, and dried mushrooms are really good sources of umami, and sun-dried tomatoes, and maybe that's what's missing in a plant-based diet for a lot of people that they feel like they need to go back to meat because meat is very umami.
Yes.
And so
miso. I have a burger recipe that I call umami burgers because tamari and sun-dried tomatoes and miso and those elements that have that something else in it factor, and that's what you're getting. There's something else in it. Where did you do that test with the vegetable broths like that? Where on earth?
At the conference I was at. And then I've actually replicated that same study when I've done culinary retreats in Thailand. So we were showing, and everyone gets blown away because the difference is so dramatic. You're like, oh my gosh. And you add a little bit of that and literally it's less sodium than if you added salt, which is like crazy.
That's crazy. How is it added though? Because I don't even know how it comes as a product form. Is it like a sprinkle? Is it like a salt, almost like that?
So if you travel, if you live in, if you were growing up in Asia or a
Yeah.
lot of other cultures around the world, they didn't have salt and pepper on the table. They had MSG on the table. Like Accent, we had in the United States when I was a kid, Accent.
Okay.
That was a version.
Okay. Uh-huh.
And a Ajinomoto, I would run to go show you this, but like there's these little shakers that are, it's just MSG. And then there's a kind that you can't get in the US that has that extra inositol, these other salts that add the extra synergistic effect that's like blows your mind. What I say though, I don't add it to my food because I don't need my food to taste better.
Yeah.
I love my food
You just
natural.
love your food, right?
Yeah. But
Yeah.
for the people that are transitioning to a plant-based diet, this might be a good kind of like, just like all those plant-based meats, which are very umami also.
Right. They may need that like extra something to get over the hump and just to start to appreciate vegetables because a lot of us did grow up eating vegetables in the most unappealing ways, being boiled to death, really, like just being boiled beyond recognition. And I remember my sister used to eat asparagus sandwiches and it was repulsive to me because it was canned asparagus. She took it out of the can and it was gray, right? And she loved it. I don't know why, but that was my memory of green vegetables was that they were kind of that gray color, gray green. Nobody likes broccoli that is cooked to that extent. It tastes awful, right? But if we've only had that experience and then someone cooks it well and then adds that flavor enhancement, then it's a whole new experience.
That's how I grew up too. My mom just no offense, mom, if you're watching, like butchered the vegetables, like the and what I learned in graduate school because I took a lot of food science classes, they call it drab olive green, and we would do all these experiments to see at what point you get to that bright green, like with broccoli or Brussels, you go from bright green and then it just blah, and it just dies on you, and it's so gross. Yeah.
Yeah, the flavor changes completely, and it's really not long. I think people really overcook greens way too much. Even like broccoli, yes, but kale and spinach. When you look at these charts online that say, excuse me, how long to cook kale or spinach, and they say like 5 minutes, this, thinking, no, spinach needs about 30 seconds in hot water, and then it's beyond, it's done. Like I literally add it to the end of, when I'm cooking a stew, I mix it in at the end, then put it in a bowl because it's already wilted, and it's perfect. Anything longer than that, and it gets gray, gets that olive gross green, right?
And the texture changes too, and it gets soggy, and it's like, ugh, yeah, chewy, and yeah.
Yeah, totally. And I never actually cook kale. For instance, if I want to wilt it down, I'll take a bowl, fill it with boiled water, dump my kale in there, drain it off, and it's softened and it's wilted enough that it's not raw, so it's easier on digestion, and especially in the winter. But you don't even need to like set up your cooking pot or anything, right? You just,
right.
Yeah. So very interesting. Okay, very cool. Okay, so the next thing I want to ask you, we've been on a while, so we should probably wrap up soon, but I do want to ask you, so what is the difference, like you're a dietitian, what's the difference between a dietitian and a nutritionist? And can people book consults with you?
That's such a good question. It's such a loaded question because I don't want to, like, dietitians have a thing. We all have this little bug up our, because like we spend a lot of time learning all of the background science. Like I spent 7 years in graduate school. So it was like all that biochemistry and the microbiology and all these wonderful things. And then, and then food science and statistics and all of these analyses. And then I did a year and a half of clinical and culinary, like I was in schools and I was in, doing food service and in the hospital doing rounds and doing like, and it's like so much education. And then you have to sit for the RD exam and you have to pass the RD exam and then you have to do continuing education. So then all sorts of people will say, oh, I took a weekend course and now I'm a nutritionist.
Right.
And so we go, wait, no, you're not.
Right. I mean, and I imagine that you obviously are gaining a lot of information doing something like that, but it's not the same depth of information that you're gaining clearly as being a dietitian, right?
Yeah, there's so many regulations and so much education required to be a dietitian. So yes, that's the difference. Anyone could say they're a nutritionist and a dietitian as a whole to do. And yes, I do consults. I'm doing my weight loss support group. I see clients all over the world, which is quite exciting. And I work with people that are transitioning to a plant-based diet or people that want to lose weight or people that have, been diagnosed with a disease or have to be on a medication, and I help them get off medications a lot if I can or help manage. What I learned in graduate school was that you can't reverse chronic disease. You have to manage it. You have to like try to avoid the next level of the medication dose, or just try to avoid the progression. And that's what was so extraordinarily exciting when I went plant-based and saw that, oh my gosh, we could actually reverse things that we never thought possible, like advanced stage cardiovascular disease and type 2 diabetes. And I always say results are typical. My clients get off their medications. Really, it's so amazing. There's nothing in the world like a plant-based diet.
Hallelujah. And people still don't believe it, right? One of my girls said to me the other day, or actually it was today, that her teacher mentioned that you're born with diabetes. And I said, yes, one type, like type 1 diabetes. I said, but type 2 diabetes is a lifestyle diabetes. And that is completely reversible. And for some people, you know, they may, my understanding is if they've been diabetic for a very long time, it may be very difficult for them to reverse it. But there's that understanding, I think, out there that, you know, you're born with this, you know, heart disease is genetic. And then we believe that, and we kind of ingrain it, and our cells even believe it, when really we can change so much to reverse, like you're saying, right?
Yes. I mean, type 1, you can't reverse.
No.
But you can manage it very well on a plant-based diet. And type 2 diabetes, depending on how, even if it's progressed, depends on how much damage you've had to your pancreas. But most people improve or completely reverse.
Right.
Type 2 diabetes with plant-based diet. It's just, and people are so afraid to eat carbs, and that's a whole other talk for a whole other day.
We need a whole other talk on that one, okay? We totally do. Good gracious. I hear it all the time. I mean, I could tell you stories, but you've heard stories, I know. We really have to get past that carbs. I was listening to a talk, and there was like a trainer, and she was working with someone who said, I'm not eating carbs on this program and I'm craving them all the time. And she's like, of course you're craving carbs, because you do need them. But we know the difference of the processed carbs versus eating our carbs like rice, sweet potatoes, right? There's such.
I mean, my message right now for the last few years is actually a long time. I've been trying it for 10 years, I think. I've been trying to say, forget the word carbs, proteins, and fats, and just move on to foods. It means nothing. It means nothing. It's totally helpless.
Right. Yeah. Because that's where people are hung up, and they think.
Even researchers and doctors are hung up on those words. Literally, I always use the example. I have a video on this if anyone's interested to look at my video called Macro Confusion, because even at the research level, there was a study in the Lancet. I love this example because it's so poignant. This research article came out in, I think it's 2018, in the Lancet journal, and which is a very highly respected medical journal. And the conclusion was a high carb diet and a low carb diet increase mortality.
What?
Yeah. What does that even mean? What does that mean? It means nothing. It means it doesn't matter what carbs, and no one's ever found a perfect macro profile for anything, because there is no such thing. You just need to eat whole foods. I always go to my list, go back to foods: vegetables, fruits, whole grains, legumes, mushrooms, nuts, seeds, herbs, and spices in infinite tasty combinations. That's it.
Yes. Amen to that. Same goes for protein. And whenever people ask me about that, I say, you just need to eat your plant foods.
Keep it simple.
Eat your variety of plant foods. It's in everything. You just eat it and you're good. And it's like, you know, vegan for 25 years. You've been vegan for what?
16.
Yeah. And it's not the issue, right? Now, some of the other things might be that we talked about, B12 and D. So be aware of that and take care of yourself, and maybe occasionally do a blood test. That was the first blood test I've done since I was pregnant, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know. What do you recommend for blood tests? Should you get them every couple of years?
I recommend annual labs just to stay on top of it, because, you know, you may feel great and everything, but it's good to know what's going on the inside. Yeah. And just prophylactically, just to stay on top of it, you just want to get a profile of what's going on the inside. And if you haven't had anything, you know, maybe it's fine a couple years. But like my clients, when they come to me for a consult, I want recent labs within a year.
Okay, that's great information, because I never thought that it was that important to do it. But how do you know otherwise? You really have no idea otherwise.
Especially something like vitamin D, you wouldn't know. You just
No.
wouldn't know.
No, it scared me actually. When I got it back, I was like, holy shit, I'm so low, right? And it's critical information. It's funny because we do it when we're pregnant, right? Why only when we're pregnant, right? Women kind of get caught up in that. Take care of yourself when you're pregnant, and then everything else falls away
Then
after.
you become a mom and it's all about the kids.
Yeah. Screw you. Figure it out. Yeah. Yeah.
Totally.
Okay. Well, we need to book another call on carbs, I think.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah, that would be good. But
Great.
everyone your site and how to contact you if they do want to have a consult. I have people ask all the time about dietitians in my group, so I know for sure I can connect them with you, but give it to everyone here.
Thank you. Yes. Anyone can find me at plantbaseddietitian.com. And I'm on Instagram here as my name, Julieanna Hever, and I'm on social media. I'm posting these videos. I'm doing a spinoff of my TV show, What Would Julieanna Do? What Would Julieanna Do Q&A, and I'm just answering these questions because I just want people to know these answers. There's so much information out there, and I just want to be like a source for, like I really look at the science, and I've worked with people now. It's been 25 years because I was a personal trainer first, but I've learned a lot from my experience with clients, and I'm blown away by how extraordinarily helpful eating whole plant foods and being mindful of your notable nutrients can be. It's extraordinary.
Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful way to end it. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Splendid day, and I wish everyone out there a beautiful day. Blessings to everyone, and we shall talk again, my dear.
I love you.
Okay, I love you too. Bye.
Bye.